Sit back,
It's so naughty.
strap in,
It was quite an eye-opener.
and get ready to return
They banned the video.
to Naughty Naughty 1984.
The world stopped turning at that point.
And what had our scandalised tongues wagging?
Even if she'd been 16, she was still too young for him.
They were at it! That is shocking!
There were political puppets,
I do not take orders from men. And don't you ever forget it!
while video got nasty.
There were classic movies she had a problem with.
I have far too much respect for my mind.
Over the next 2 hours, we'll take a deep dive into the outrages
Blasphemy, darling. What was she doing?
and gobsmacking events of '84.
Listen, I might seem like a traitor.
As the nation watches tragedy unfold live
You knew something had gone dreadfully wrong. It was absolutely horrible.
and politics takes a sinister turn.
Makes you very frightened and very determined that they're not going to win.
It was outspoken,
Like a monstrous carnival.
He really wasn't allowed to say that.
shocking,
I don't know what happened. I can't remember.
Oh, I'm getting upset now.
and crazily controversial.
I thought it was rubbish.
It's okay to be wrong about things, Michael. And you were wrong about Doctor Who.
These are the most extraordinary events in TV, showbiz, music and politics that were, controversially, 1984. George Orwell predicted 1984 would be bleak. He had no idea. Forget Big Brother. We had a big sister in charge and not everyone was happy.
The police are already blocking off roads.
It seemed to be wall-to-wall anarchy.
It is unlawful assembly.
And that chaos spilled from our streets onto our screens as Britain's youth revelled in gratuitous violence from the comfort of their sofas.
One series which some particularly older viewers find tasteless is The Young Ones.
The second series of the rebellious and groundbreaking sitcom, The Young Ones, didn't just raise the comedy bar, it repeatedly smashed viewers over the head with it.
It was anarchic, it was naughty, it was just deeply funny and rude, really rude.
All of Felicity Kendall's underwear. That needs a good wash.
It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. It was like Punk the sitcom.
Hands up, who likes me? Damn! Right, that's it. I'm going to kill myself. Then you'll be sorry.
No, we won't.
The Young Ones was completely controversial, and you never really knew what was going to happen next. It was fantastic because this was a show for me. This was not a show for my mum and dad. This was a show for young people.
Comedy duo Rick Mayall and Ade Edmondson, along with Alexei Sayle and Ben Elton, were pioneers of 80s alternative comedy. Upcoming BBC producer Paul Jackson, on the lookout for edgy new talent, had caught them live at the Comedy Store.
I was a young assistant in the entertainment department, and I've always loved comedy, and I thought, oh, I must go and have a look at this. And I was knocked out. I went back to the BBC and said, look, there's this thing happening. We should do something about it.
Rick Mayall, a natural disruptor, had already unleashed his spoof reporter Kevin Turvey to BBC sketch show A Kick Up the 80s and wanted to go further.
Good evening, Britain. Tonight, I'd like to talk about shark fishing. But I don't know the first thing about it. So I'm going to have to talk about something else, I think.
Mayall was keen not to just push TV boundaries, but burn them. And following an offer from Jackson, Mayall began writing with American Lisa Mayer and British political satirist Ben Elton, their intention to kick the very concept of sitcom down the garden path.
Now, that is a miracle.
We'd had The Good Life, and we'd had Wendy Craig, Butterflies.
Sexy legs.
Is that a joke?
Is it? Is that a joke?
And suddenly, somebody is putting their head through a wall. There's headbutting nuclear bombs. People are punching each other. It was just so high energy, so revolutionary, and yet it was sort of a domestic sitcom all along.
The scripts are actually absolutely bog-standard sitcom procedure. You've got 4 characters with very explicit characteristics which never change. You lob a a situation into it, whether it's a bomb in the cellar or the end of term exams.
Oh, wow!
They all react in their own different ways, and then the whole thing reconciles in the final scene. It's a very traditional comedy.
Not traditional enough, though, for the self-appointed guardians of the British moral compass.
It's sick, obscene, vulgar, and not even one iota funny.
It was controversial in the sense that there was a lot of violence in the show, quite graphic violence. You know, Vivian loses his head, blood spurts everywhere.
You take your time, you bastard!
People said it was, you know, too violent.
It had a kind of element of cruelty to it that felt kind of new.
Well, I could think that an older audience would be offended, as some of them were, by both the language and they claim to be disgusted by some of the stuff they saw on the young ones.
I'm sure they are. I mean, we certainly didn't set out that way. We just put in the stuff that made us laugh, and I think that's all we can do.
Nobody's trying to offend anybody, you know. That's a really basic misunderstanding. Did we think it would be controversial? Well, if you'd asked us at the time, yeah, probably we thought people would object, but we didn't care, and it wasn't the purpose.
I'm being hassled in the street by a chick. Paranoid, man.
Stop making him paranoid, you snag!
It's very slapstick violence, the young ones. It is. It's the Three Stooges, really. I mean, it's lots of eye-poking and hits over the head with frying pans. I mean, it's Tom and Jerry made real.
Oh, wow. A wet bum. Just far out.
It's boy farty toilet humour.
Achtung!
It's not an automatic.
There were no trigger warnings in 1984, but nowadays the sensitive are given ample alerts.
It's even more shocking now because there's things that we thought were OK to say and situations we thought were OK to represent that would never make it through any kind of compliance now.
Can you, actually kill yourself with laxative pills?
I don't know, Neil, but I'm going to stay and find out.
You would never get away with doing stuff like that these days because we're so much more aware of mental health.
When you talk about suicide, well, of course it's not funny, and making jokes about suicide wouldn't be funny.
I really screwed that up, didn't I? I should think I'd look pretty stupid if anyone was watching.
That's not a joke about suicide. There wasn't the remotest chance of him committing suicide. It's a joke about the complete ineptitude and self-indulgence and self-importance of that character, of Neil.
I thought you were dead!
But that's no reason to hassle me on the toilet.
In the modern day, I think it's possible to become too concerned about trigger issues, trigger words. So you say suicide, you can't do gags about suicide. Well, you can do a gag about an incompetent bloke completely failing to commit suicide for a completely ridiculous reason in the first place. I think you can do that joke.
That was really pretty bad, Rick.
Bad for society when the kids start to get into it.
Anything made in any time is made for its time. That's the point of popular culture. They weren't making the young ones in 1984 to be funny in 2023.
See, I've done my revision. I'm going up now to stuff loads and loads of paper down the toilet.
It's 80s gold, and its influence obviously went on to Vic and Bob. You know, the League of Gentlemen wouldn't have happened in the same way without the young ones.
It was irreverent, it was anarchic, and if that offended some of the older viewers and the TV critics from the Times, well, tough luck to them. They had plenty of shows of their own.
The next targets for Conservative campaigners would be horror films and pop music.
They were classic movies she had a problem with.
This is harmful. This is offensive.
But one pop band was primed and ready to turn the tables.
It's so beautifully designed to cause a maximum amount of trouble.
The minute something got banned, we were obsessed with it at our school.
Check down the back of the sofa for that old VCR remote control and join us as we rewind back to the controversies of 1984, when your TV choice could land you in a whole heap of trouble.
More than a third of all children under the age of 7 have seen a video nasty. That's one of the findings in a study of video violence published today by a group of MPs, peers and churchmen.
Every day, this is what scores of Britain's school children are up to. They're tuning in their thousands to the sickening violence of an endless stream of video nasties.
All new technology has a dark side, and in 1984 it was hardcore horror, known as the video nasty.
Video nasties were extreme VHS films that were unrated, usually very hardcore horror movies depicting sexual violence, murder, other acts of body horror.
More movies are now seen on video than in the cinema. But regulations which were designed for films don't apply to the new technology.
The authorities were playing catch-up in trying to regulate it.
And here's the authorities using the Obscene Publications Act to seize unregulated films. Cue moral panic.
The Director of Public Prosecutions called the material an extravaganza of gory violence, capable of depraving and corrupting those who watched it.
But depravity seekers who knew someone were in for a nice evening of corruption.
I've seen a lot of them, you know. There was a builder doing some work at my mum and dad's house, and he could get his hands on these, and I loved it. But my mum and dad didn't seem to mind, because it was horror, you know. It wasn't like hardcore porn, because I'm Catholic.
It was currency always of like Barry on the Estate who could get you these things. So I had Spit on Your Grave, Evil Dead, Driller Killer. They're all quite boring, actually, and especially they're boring when you're watching it on a 10th generation one where it looks like there's a blizzard sweeping in.
He didn't mind the bad quality, the snow, and then it kind of clearing. And you go, oh, it works, you know. This video works. That was the thrill. But you got your hands on a copy. It was like a badge of honour.
You just had to have sort of seen them in order to have some kind of playground or pub sort of credence.
Enter Britain's offence finder general, crusader against controversy, Mary Whitehouse.
I'm afraid, you know, people who say, but why shouldn't adults be able to see this kind of thing in their own home? I'm half tempted to say that people who make that kind of demand, knowing that children are likely to see it, aren't really themselves very mature and adult.
Whitehouse, as chief spokesperson for the National Viewers and Listeners Association, had been cleaning up TV since the 60s and was now sworn enemy of extreme horror.
This list came out of video nasties to try and make everything clearer for people. This is harmful. This is offensive.
The image the campaigners presented was of children having unrestricted access to horrific videos.
The hysterical horror headlines forced our government into action.
Such was the outcry. Members of Parliament panicked. I was on the standing committee that went through the bill on video nasties that eventually became law. The idea was that we would be able to categorise the nastiness of videos, so some would be banned outright, others would be restricted. I was rather a sceptic. There was a danger we were actually glamorising video nasties, but it answered the media and to some extent public demand that the government should, in inverted commas, do something.
1984's Video Recordings Act banned 72 nasties outright. Shame, I rather fancied zombie creeping flesh.
There have been many moral panic moments. And when there's moral panic around something in society which terrifies people, that's the moment when they can push through bans. There were classic movies she had a problem with, like Evil Dead. How can you have a problem with Evil Dead? It's so funny.
Mary Whitehouse explained her logic, and it's an argument that's still raging 4 decades later.
Just as drugs are obsessional, so getting hooked on violence can be obsessional too.
My actual view back to her is we're not puppets. We don't do the things which we watch. I watched Superman, and I felt no desire to jump out of the window and pretend to fly. I actually think the horrific things give us moments of catharsis.
But the big question was, what did Mary herself make of a video nasty's content?
I haven't seen it. I have far too much respect for my mind ever to look at these things.
That National Viewers and Listeners Association, it wielded an extraordinary power. But then again, in a democracy, I suppose fair play to her.
If I have any power, it is because it is acknowledged that our association speaks for a considerable voice in the country.
Maybe she had a point. She was opening up a question around what is the limit of free speech? Is it really okay to show rape and paedophilia and incest and murder and horror? What are the limits of what's acceptable?
There always will be this battle between what broadcasters and filmmakers and programme makers want to put out and what the so-called kind of pillars of society feel that we should be watching.
So in 1984's heavyweight bout between moral crusaders and controversy, round 1 goes to the Crusaders, but seconds away, round 2, in which the fighters against immorality square up to pop music.
Another story of the pop singer turned impresario who's making a great success of his new career producing unknown bands. He's Trevor Horn.
In 1983, former Yes and Buggles singer Trevor Horn set up his own record label, ZTT, along with his wife Jill Sinclair and former NME journalist Paul Morley. The trio believed they knew exactly what the record-buying public were craving.
Pop music's about sex and about reproduction because the kids who buy records are between the ages of about 12 and 25 and mating is all that they have on their mind.
And Liverpool's horny hopefuls, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, were a band keen to kick pop's old guard out of the charts.
Somebody like Rod Stewart always to me looks like a dirty old uncle, and I thought Frankie looked much healthier. They were just sort of raw lust, you know?
Holly, why did the Frankies sign to ZTT?
Well, no one would touch us with a barge pole.
The recording relationship was
bits of your anatomy.
It was so beautifully designed to cause the maximum amount of trouble.
ZTT's plan to provoke moral outrage left nothing to chance.
In the end event, you know, we're in business.
It wasn't just the record itself, which is quite steamy. It was the whole iconography that went with it. The slightly rude sleeve. 2 people in sort of bondage gear. They're back to back. It just looks raunchy. And that's where the record company, ZTT, they won. They managed to create controversy.
The last thing you want to be is another record label. You have to be a little bit special.
Racy video? Tick. Catchy but naughty single? Tick. Playlisted on radio? Tick. The plan was coming together, but deep in the bowels of Broadcasting House, somebody was not relaxed. Not relaxed at all.
Mike Reed, the Radio 1 disc jockey, decides that he is appalled by the subject matter of this record and declares that he will not play it anymore.
Mike Reed, who's quite fond of making a fool of himself, suddenly decided that he was going to be the nation's conscience and that he couldn't possibly put up with this pornographic piffle on his dear radio show.
Radio 1 producer and knitwear fan Dave Atke attempted to explain the band to singer Holly Johnson.
I found the lyrics objectionable, and I felt that the record could offend a majority of our listening audience.
I'm quite outraged by the way I've kind of almost been slandered and said, you know, I think disgusting lyrics.
It is a description of a sexual act.
Relax, don't do it. Where
Till
is
you
the
want
sexual
to come.
act? Well, come on, explain further.
I don't think I need to.
Good try, Holly, but no cigar.
The BBC often gets itself in a bit of a tiz, and particularly did back then. It did with the Sex Pistols and God Save the Queen and all of that. And, of course, they just looked a bit old-fashioned.
What really seemed to get up people's noses was it was really overtly a gay anthem. A lot of people found that really shocking.
They scared the establishment. It was like, oh, there's gay men talking about gay sex and we don't want anything to do with that.
There's no doubt that a lot of the vitriol levelled at Frankie Goes to Hollywood at the time was a fallout from homophobia, which was rife at the time. You only have to look at the rhetoric of the tabloids. You know, we're in the middle of the AIDS pandemic. Personally, for me, growing up as a gay man at the time, I remember that rhetoric very, very vividly.
If this blitzkrieg of negative publicity was designed to shut Frankie up, it really didn't work.
The more people tried to suppress it, the more it was everywhere. The Frankie T-shirt was everywhere, the Frankie slogans were everywhere. By banning it, they turned it into the biggest hit of the year.
Obviously, this is fantastic for Frankie Goes to Hollywood. And the powers at ZTT behind it, they'd have been delighted by this.
ZTT's master plan to stir up a storm had played out exactly as they intended.
The minute something got banned, we were obsessed with it at our school. Someone says, "You heard this track, Frankie, relax." No, what is it? It's been banned. How do I hear it?
I was 12 years old. I didn't know why it had been banned because I didn't know the language. Mike Reid was an absolute muppet because most of the people were just buying it because it was a great pop song.
DJs thought that they were on the side of the child and the moral high ground, but all they were doing was clearing the path through to number 1.
Relax would hit the top spot in 10 different countries and even make the top 10 in the United States.
It was huge in America.
A country not normally known for its sexual liberalism and experimentation.
I think basically us Americans, all we heard was, relax. So why didn't the BBC relax?
While Frankie Goes to Hollywood's entire reputation came from courting controversy, one British band had so far managed to steer away from anything remotely contentious: Bucks Fizz.
I was a massive fan. The first record I ever bought was a Bucks Fizz record. I just thought they were brilliant.
They were our version of ABBA. Bucks Fizz were literally put together, like the ingredients in a cake.
The icing on that cake was winning the Eurovision Song Contest only 4 months after their formation.
So from being nowhere and nobody, that short period of time, life changed completely.
Making Your Mind Up hit #1 in the UK charts as fans lapped up the group's catchy music and wholesome image.
Bucks Fizz were really squeaky clean. I mean, they were like squeaky clean and some polish on top.
Although looking back at their iconic dance routine, perhaps we shouldn't, skirt the issue?
Back then, it wasn't controversial to rip our skirts off, not in the slightest. And we didn't mind either. We just thought, it's great telly, it'll be an eye-opener. I think it won the Eurovision Song Contest for us.
In an age of video nasties, a minor skirt removal hardly registered on the shock dial. For the next 3 years, the Fizz were everywhere.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bucks Fizz.
Bucks Fizz.
Bucks Fizz.
1984 saw the group riding the crest of a wave.
We were on a sold-out tour, enjoying life, really having the best time.
But a few fateful seconds in Newcastle brought the band's dreams to a crashing halt.
We did the gig, it was fantastic. Got on the coach, got a vodka tonic, sat down, it's a really beautiful coach. And the next thing I remember is laying in the road.
2 members of the Bucks Fizz pop group have been badly injured in a road accident in Newcastle. A total of 15 people were hurt when the group's coach collided with an articulated lorry on the Great North Road during the night.
Singers Cheryl Baker and Mike Nolan and 2 members of the backing band were thrown through the coach's windscreen.
I just remember waking up and blue flashing lights and voices. Cheryl, wake up, Cheryl. And it was like my mum waking me up to go to school and I wanted to say to her, 5 more minutes, Mum, 5 more minutes.
The injured were rushed to a local hospital.
The first thing I did was move my legs, and I could move them, but my back was broken.
Somehow, singers Jay Aston and Bobby G escaped serious injury.
It felt, first of all, that we was braking heavily, and then it just became more intense, and we were just hurled through the coach.
From external injuries alone, it seemed Cheryl had come out worse.
I remember laying flat and then picking glass out of me. And the next morning, Mike Nolan came in to see me, and he went, "You all right?" And I went, "Oh, blimey, Mike, if your fans could see you now," because like me, his hair was full of blood and glass. And he went, "Oh, don't make me laugh, Cheryl, I've got such a headache, and they won't give me any tablets." And that evening, he slipped into a coma and was rushed off to the General Hospital to remove a blood clot on the brain. So, I'm getting upset now.
His condition is critical and may either deteriorate, possibly to a fatal outcome, or he may recover.
I don't think I realised how serious it was. Mike Nolan nearly died.
It was really touch and go. He had the last rites. He was revived 3 times with CPR.
On the edge of death, miraculously, Mike Nolan pulled through.
I don't know what happened. I can't remember what happened. All I know was just this big crash. And I had a clot, and they had 11 minutes to release it. Otherwise, I'd have been brain dead, they reckon.
It took a long time for Mike to get over the coach crash. In fact, he's still getting over it now.
When you're involved in something that catastrophic, I don't think it ever leaves you.
For many years, he was very, very ill. He wasn't the same. He lost his spark for many years.
People have said to me that the old Mike that I was has never come back. I'm now a better Mike. You've got to back me up on that.
Yes, it's right. When I look at the coach, I think, how did anyone get out of that alive? How did anybody live after that crash?
Shattered by their experience, the band were never the same again.
That accident brought to light so many things, all of the arguments behind the scenes. It was really the crash that exploded the band.
4 decades on, with 80s revivals soaring in popularity, the Fizz are back as a 3-piece without singer Bobby G and are once again pulling in the crowds.
And it's fantastic. Got back together, me, Mike and Jay, and we still rip the skirts off. It is wonderful that we can still do that.
In 1984, no one was off limits when it came to creating controversy.
We were certain that Margaret watched it because she changed to look more like her puppet.
And the press were getting better and better at dragging secret affairs into the light.
Everybody was completely gobsmacked. She was just a child.
We're dusting down the trim phone and dialing back to the controversies of 1984.
It was shocking being there.
When celebrity gossip got juicier than ever before.
We are obsessed by the relationships in the tabloids.
And political satire was once again raising its ugly head on TV.
Evening. It's lovely to be here, isn't it, right?
Yes, it is, Neil. And that may well be controversial.
Spitting Image was a satirical, rubberized puppet show which took the mick out of the headlines of the day. In the most cutting and clever and yet grotesque and laughable way possible.
We'd been in the grip of a Margaret Thatcher's government, and many people did not like it. And so to have these puppets making complete fools of all these stupid politicians was fantastic.
Everyone had to watch Spitting Image because we'd all be talking about it on Monday morning.
I'm Mary Whitehouse. I didn't actually see Spitting Image last week, but it was disgusting.
Millions and millions of people were tuning in to watch politicians whacking each other over the head, and suddenly political satire was huge again.
Hungry for lead, Ed.
While some laughed, many others scowled.
I'm not sure of the purpose of the program because it's not really very funny. It's not really very satirical. You don't learn anything new.
Mrs. Thatcher is made to look very ugly. Now, she has many defects, according to some people, but ugliness is not one of them.
It is a little bit cruel.
Do you bother about what people think?
Yes, we do. I'm glad that he does find it's irresponsible and disrespectful, because that is exactly what it's supposed to be.
Politicians across all parties were ruthlessly parodied.
Prime Ministers.
Don't dawdle, Geoffrey. I'll send you to Northern Ireland.
Naturally, MPs were way too busy to be concerned with the show.
Everybody watched it. And then you come into work the next morning going, hee hee hee. So those who were on sometimes wished that they weren't. And those that were not on the show recognised that they weren't important enough or well enough known.
Conservative Edwina Currie, a relatively unknown backbencher at the time, was keen to up her profile.
We did eventually have a puppet of Edwina Currie, and of course she was delighted about this. I think she sent in a lock of her hair so that we got that right.
It was a kind of double-edged sword, if you like. Suddenly 10, 12, 13 million people knew who you were, but they thought you were just like your puppet. They didn't see the subtleties or, God help me, the intelligence or anything that you were trying to say.
While rising comedy stars like Harry Enfield and Chris Barry provided some voices,
when I became president, someone told me I had a voice. Then I opened my mouth, and here it came.
it was 22-year-old Steve Nullen's on-the-money impression of Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher that stole the show.
She was the greatest comic gift of the 20th century. For comedians and satirists, you couldn't have invented her. I got the job on Spitting Image writing to John Lloyd, who was the producer. The audition wasn't really an audition. What happened was he asked me a question as Mrs. Thatcher, and I answered it as Mrs. Thatcher. And goodness me, I think the way my body moved, the way my hands moved, the way I expressed myself, that got me the job to a degree. And then Roger Law came in, who was the puppet maker, and John said, this guy is going to do Mrs. Thatcher. And Roger said, do her then. And I said, goodness me, Mr. Law, I do not take orders from men. And he burst out laughing, and we've been friends ever since.
You know, Spitting Image portrayed me as someone who is out of touch, someone who has no humanity. Well, the truth is, I care. I care a great deal.
I care, and don't you ever forget it!
We never will. But did the real Mrs. T care enough to check out her latex counterpart?
We were certain that Margaret watched it. Absolutely certain. Why were we certain? Because she changed to look more like her puppet. At the beginning of her time in office, she was quite nervous, quite shy, and she wore little kind of pussy bows, and she had a slightly high voice.
Goodness, it's as well you didn't live in the time of Queen Elizabeth I, isn't it?
Then along comes Spitting Image with a much deeper voice and a man's suit.
Are you trying to tell me, you fat spotty oaf, that I can't kill anyone I choose?
And next thing we know, Margaret's wearing dark suits with little white revers, and her voice has become more authoritative.
While Mrs. Thatcher was an easy target, the royal family didn't escape the derision either.
There's plenty of excess fat in the monarchy.
You leave my sister out of this!
I understand that the royal family didn't really like it much, apart from Diana, who thought it was fantastic. But then, of course, she would, because she was like the rest of us. We all wanted to poke fun at, you know, anything stuffy or anything that was ridiculous.
Its take-no-prisoners portrayals of royals and politicians made Spitting Image one of the most successful and controversial satires ever. But what happens when your #1 target is ousted as Prime Minister?
As you know, I won't be here forever. And my successor, well, might be someone from round this table.
New PM John Major's quiet and unassuming front was a far cry from Thatcher's aggressive and forceful nature.
We were the guys who had to decide how to portray John Major. We were trying to pin down the ordinariness of him. I said, well, no, imagine if he was always grey and everything else was in colour. And they just painted him grey, put him in a grey suit, and it looked fantastic.
These please are rounder than usual.
We'd film him having his tea with Norma and always eating peas for some reason. We just thought it was funny that he had the most boring vegetable you can think of.
They're the same ones I normally buy.
Oh, I don't mind.
Oh, good.
But peas can only take satire so far. The writers needed some drama and invented a situation that could never happen. Not ever.
We thought, wouldn't it be fun if we had him maybe having an affair? So we sat around and went, well, who should it be? Edwina Currie? Well, no, she's not really around so much these days. What about Virginia Bottomley?
Cooey, I got your message. I came as soon as I could.
Yes, John, I think we've got to talk.
Oh, so do I.
Yeah.
The nation loved this naughty idea that John Major was having an affair.
But in a shocking real-life twist, choosing Conservative MP Virginia Bottomley was the wrong option.
When I saw John Major's rather grey image, I had a private giggle to myself, along the lines of, oh, you don't know him. That might be the image he's portraying, but that isn't him.
And Edwina would know, after revelations in her published diaries took everyone by surprise.
We so nearly chose Edwina Currie, not knowing that he had an affair with Edwina Currie.
The news would stun the nation and inject some colour into John Major's image.
The reason why Edwina Currie saying she'd had an affair with John Major is just beyond most of us is because not so much her, but him. So this guy that we've all gone, he's the grey man, you know, he's so boring. Back in '84, when we were all laughing at Spitting Image, they were at it. That is shocking.
You can imagine I'm in the House of Commons. There are 23 women in the entire House of Commons, with over 600 men. We are getting propositioned all the time, sometimes in a nice way, sometimes not very nice way. And occasionally we see somebody that actually we do rather fancy, we do rather like, and we do rather think might be trustworthy and be a closer friend than some of the others. That's what he came across as, at least to me.
Edwina Currie was 38 in 1984. John Major was 41. I only mention that because our next controversial couple had a 34-year age difference. Meet the Rolling Stone and the Schoolgirl.
Bill Wyman and Mandy Smith.
He said in his autobiography that she looked like a woman, but in reality, she was just a child.
It was all a bit tawdry. She was part of this wild child scene all over the covers of The Sun with these basically out-of-control youngsters who were behaving way beyond their years. Now, admittedly, he thought that she was older, but still, even if she'd been legal, even if she'd been 16, she was still too young for him.
The couple did at least wait a few years before tying the knot.
He's 52, she's nearly 19, and they got married today. Bill Wyman and Mandy Smith.
Even then, as a schoolboy, I'm looking at that going, what? He's married her? But hang on, isn't she just the year above me at school? Really? Really?
Mandy's mother is younger than you.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's confusing.
Hold on, can we rewind that reaction?
Mandy's mother is younger than you.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's confusing.
Can you imagine an audience doing that now?
I remember thinking if the boot was on the other foot, I'm not sure I'd want to go on a national chat show with a woman that was double my age and say that we just got married. But I remember looking around the room and everyone else going, no, it's fine, they've just got married, of course they have.
At the time, there was a lot of blame attached to her as well as him. It said that she was a bad role model for young women. It's unfair. That relationship was very damaging for her.
This is forever, isn't it?
I hope so.
Yeah.
That's what it's about, isn't it?
If forever means 2 years, then yes, they were married forever. And the 1984 controversial couplings keep coming. Step forward another music legend.
The rock star Elton John was married in Australia this morning. His bride was a German recording studio engineer, Renata Blaul.
Everybody was completely gobsmacked. I remember somebody writing and saying, "I'm still standing" is one of his hits, but the rest of us are on the floor.
He'd announced his engagement on Friday, and under New South Wales laws would normally have had to wait a month before the wedding.
After publicly declaring his bisexuality in the 70s, and after rumours of many male lovers, Elton's sudden marriage to a woman was the last thing anyone expected.
Renata was a studio engineer, obviously very talented musically, and Elton and she had a great bond already formed through the music. He met Renata in an island called Montserrat. They'd gone out to dinner, and I think Elton was really sick of falling in love with men who didn't fall in love back with him, who didn't reciprocate.
Once again, Wogan was on the controversy front line.
Was it a whirlwind romance? Had you been cogitating it for a long time?
Well, I'd often done that. But it was, yes, it was kind of whirlwind. But I know I'd met her before. Renata's an engineer. And it was just a chemistry between the two of us, and I had no doubts. And I thought that my time of life, it's about time I took the plunge.
I don't really remember him coming out as bisexual or ever. I just loved him and I was thrilled he'd got married and she had a fabulous dress on. So there was kind of no judgment.
I can sympathise with Elton in deciding that a marriage was a good idea. As it happens, it wasn't a good idea. People were panicking in those days, and they thought, what can we do to get out of this? And the answer was to find someone that you could marry.
Elton and Renata's relationship would last twice as long as Bill and Mandy's, with the couple divorcing after 4 years.
You can't live a lie. And sadly, you know, that didn't work out. But he genuinely loved her. He really genuinely loved her.
I think they were very good friends.
One celebrity couple whose relationship was unquestionably built to last was the McCartneys. But in 1984, they hit the headlines after being issued a ticket to ride to the local Nick.
Linda McCartney, the wife of pop singer Paul McCartney, was arrested at Heathrow Airport this afternoon and charged with possessing cannabis. She'll appear in court later this month. Paul McCartney and his family had arrived back from Barbados, where he'd been fined £70 for possessing a small amount of cannabis.
Most pop stars would be contrite, but McCartney isn't most pop stars, and he dug in and doubled down regardless of the consequences.
That whatever you think and whatever you think I've done, this, I'm telling you, this substance, cannabis, is a whole lot less harmful than rum punch, whiskey, nicotine, and glue, all of which are perfectly legal.
It's so sort of almost normalised now, where then it was so sort of demonised. Oh, my God, he's smoking weed. You know, it's like the devil incarnate.
What about your children, I would like to see it decriminalised, because I don't think, in the privacy of my own room, I was doing anyone any harm whatsoever.
Well, you've got to start off by saying that Paul McCartney is possibly the greatest human being who has ever lived or will ever live. So everything needs to be seen in that context. I'm a fan. Macca's enthusiasm for herbal produce is well known and completely fine, I think. And because of Paul's enthusiasm, I think we've had some of the greatest art of the 20th century.
Macca's herbal dalliance began during an early Beatles visit to America.
3,000 screaming teenagers are at New York's Kennedy Airport to greet, you guessed it, the Beatles.
The Beatles were first introduced to weed by Bob Dylan in 1964. And you can see the difference in the photographs between that first wave of Beatlemania and then, say, when they're making the film Help, because they are all out of their boxes.
He's almost a lifelong advocate for marijuana, isn't he? He'd been busted in America, Sweden, Japan. Even in Scotland, on his farm, he was growing his own. And on all of these occasions, he called for weed to be legalised.
Personally, I think it's less dangerous than cigarettes in the long run, personally, but I haven't got any proof. It's my opinion.
Macca wasn't the first Beatle to be busted. Both Lennon and Harrison were arrested for possession in the 60s. But while the Beatles were known to have experimented with hallucinogenics like LSD, their cannabis use has proved enduringly controversial.
Not being a big fan of the wacky tobacco, I do know that if you are a musician, it seems to be a very good drug, creatively.
Whereas some people, it sort of slows down their creative process. With him, it seemed to sort of speed it up. It took him to wonderful creative places with a lot of his work.
I love you all dearly. Goodbye.
Now, without medical examination, we'll never know if the Fab Four's herbal intake had any lasting negative effects. But let's note that in '84, Ringo Starr became Thomas the Tank Engine, and Paul McCartney decided a frog chorus was a good idea. Just saying. In 1984, it seemed no one could escape controversy.
Simon Roberts on the line. Hello, Simon.
I think the world stopped turning at that point.
It was a waste of the licence payers' money.
But it had the power to be deeply shocking too.
Incredible piece of television. I'm getting choked up now just thinking about it.
What up? Somebody else, come on.
Ah, look, we've landed back in 1984 on Planet Controversial. And now we're rewinding the troubled TV of that year. Starting with a Time Lord, who probably wished he could go back and start all over again.
Who's to be the new Doctor Who has been announced. The man who'll take to the TARDIS from now on is Colin Baker, the 6th Doctor Who in 20 years.
I might regenerate. I don't know.
In 1984, Peter Davidson's easygoing Doctor said ta-ta to the TARDIS, with some effects borrowed from Top of the Pops.
Die, Doctor!
It was different. His replacement would instantly be divisive.
The new Doctor, Colin Baker's Doctor, was going to be brash and loud and angry, and they really decided to go for that.
What's happened?
Change, my dear. And it seems not a moment too soon.
If Doctor Who's looked more adventurous than this one. This one just looks like he's come out of a comedy programme.
I like the way he dressed, but I don't think he plays his part very well.
Harsh.
I have to say that the outfit you're wearing, Colin, is rather odd, to say the least. Did you have any hand in designing it?
Well, I'm not one to talk about 80s fashion, because look what I was wearing. But his flamboyant patchwork coat was quite a thing. It featured such a lot of pink, which is a difficult colour to wear.
I mean, the outfit is really of the time, shall we say. It is giving very 80s, but, I mean, it's Doctor Who. You are a time-travelling space alien with two hearts that constantly saves the universe. I feel like maybe fashion isn't your priority in that kind of situation.
Colin Baker's Doctor, this kind of eye-aching costume. But what it goes hand in hand with is the desire to make the Doctor a more dangerous and unpredictable figure.
But nothing must be allowed to interfere with my period of contemplation.
They really played this hand hard, so that in the first story, in Colin Baker's first episode, he is strangling his assistant.
In the latter category was the new BBC One controller, Michael Grade. Here he is, scowling through time and space.
I thought it was rubbish. It was pathetic. It was a waste of the licence payers' money.
It had had a long run. It had been going 21 years. The ratings were plummeting, rather, and Michael Grade was a person with an axe to wield, and he saw Doctor Who's head on the block and thought, I'll have that.
The fans of Doctor Who were outraged.
Fans are notoriously reluctant to let go of their favourite things. People are up in arms.
I actually hate sci-fi to begin with, so I'm not a sci-fi fan.
I mean, we didn't really move with the times. It's quite comedic to see an old police box flying through space. I mean, it's iconic, yes, but, you know, it's not an Imperial Star Destroyer, is it?
There'd always been pressure from Hollywood, and Doctor Who was never trying to be a Superman or a Star Wars or a Star Trek. It was its own thing.
This was somehow that the fans had saved it.
Public pressure got their way eventually, and Colin came back for one last season.
It's very grudging, the restoration.
In 1989, the BBC threw away the TARDIS key, seemingly forever.
I don't really know why Michael Grade wanted to axe Doctor Who. It seems a little bit foolish.
But then look what happened.
Morning, the War Council of Gallifrey. This is the Doctor.
Ironically, maybe the Doctor just needed time to regenerate properly and become a global phenomenon.
Commencing calculation.
It's just iconic.
He never quite apologised. He's put his arm metaphorically around Colin Baker's shoulder and said, yeah, you did a good job.
Wrong about Doctor Who.
The making of TV can be controversial, and it's what's in front of the cameras that can really go nuclear. Especially when broadcast live, and particularly when teenagers are let loose on the airwaves.
The wonderful thing about children's television is what is supposed to be so anodyne and fluffy and inoffensive becomes this cesspit sometimes for awful things happening.
Behold that cesspit of depravity Saturday Superstore, a live kids show with music, guests and phone-ins. Presented by Frankie-hating Mike Reed. Oh, look at that shiny, happy set. Nothing bad happened here until one-hit wonders Matt Bianco turned up.
Right, and Simon Roberts on the line. Hello, Simon.
Hello?
You're through to Matt Bianco.
Hello, Matt Bianco. You're a bunch of wankers.
Hello? He's gone.
Now, naughty Simon Roberts rang in to Saturday Superstore, had the opportunity to interview and speak to Matt Bianco and called them all a bunch of wankers. I think the world stopped turning at that point on live kids' television.
Hello, Matt Bianco. You're a bunch of wankers.
It's the funniest thing on TV. And they look, what's so funny is they look like they're a bit annoyed, but it's like, yeah, maybe we are.
I mean, it was just unheard of, absolutely unheard of. A bit in the gallery and stuff, they were like, oh my God, no. And then that night down the pub, they were killing themselves laughing.
Mike Reid seems to brush it off.
Right, oh, sorry about the silly caller just now. You sometimes get a silly caller.
But Mike Reid is probably very angry that this could happen. On his watch, heads may have rolled.
Claire Marshall, hello.
Hello?
You're not a silly caller, are you?
No.
Good.
The reason why Bianco Gate became so celebrated was because it punctured the pomposity of Saturday Superstore. Because Mike Reid was, like, so respectable and had this kind of smoothness about him.
You can see why some radio stations and some TV live phone-ins have a delay. You know, it's like the 5-second delay so that somebody can go, hit that button and mute it. Matt Bianco, you're a banker.
Matt Bianco's misfortune was comical in its controversy. But our next live TV event was one of the most tragic moments in British TV history.
Fellow comedians have been paying tribute to the late Tommy Cooper, who died last night after appearing on stage at a London theatre. The show was being broadcast live on ITV, and the viewing audience saw the magician collapse during his act.
This was so tragic and so bizarre. I, as a television critic, had been invited along to a programme called Live from Her Majesty's, hosted by Jimmy Tarbuck. And we had Tommy coming on, and I thought, what a thrill seeing Tommy Cooper live. It's fantastic.
Tommy Cooper was a genius. They say the phrase, which has been said many times, about funny bones, but Tommy Cooper could walk on stage and you would laugh.
The brilliant comedian, magician and light entertainment legend for like 30 years.
There is something so divinely stupid about this huge man wearing a fez with clumps of hair coming out. And then on top of that, he starts telling you stupid jokes.
Look, see that? This one does the same look.
And then he'd throw in tricks.
Tommy Cooper's performance at Her Majesty's Theatre in April 1984 saw the comedian in classic form. No one imagined this would turn out to be his final and most dramatic act, witnessed by an audience of millions.
It was all going really well, and everyone was laughing hilariously. And then he suddenly seemed to sort of collapse.
When Tommy Cooper, at the end of his act, crumpled down in front of the audience, everyone thought it was part of the joke, because that's what Tommy Cooper would do. And the place was in hysterics.
We were watching on TV, and it was like, it seemed to be the end of the act, and he just collapsed. And then some arms just came out and pulled him slowly back behind the curtain.
Jimmy Tarbuck came in front of the curtain and he was very, very agitated. This is in the commercial break. So I thought, oh, my God, that must mean something awful has happened to Tommy. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. And it all went out live on television.
Tommy Cooper had suffered a fatal heart attack.
He is one of the great comedy geniuses this country's ever had. For many, 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 many years, he's just brought laughter to people all of his life.
Around that time, you had Eric Morecambe, who died in a very similar circumstance. These were performers who worked and worked and worked. They should be taking it easy, but they were still hitting the act like they were, 20-year-old men. But, of course, it took its toll.
Cooper's friend and fellow comedian Eric Sykes had shared a poignant last moment.
And he phoned me on Saturday night, told me he was doing the programme. And the funny thing is, he was joking, of course. He said, all I need is a finish to the act. Well, that's going to live with me for a long time.
It's a cliche for actors or comedians. They want to die with their boots on, but I'm not sure Tom would have liked to have gone quite so dramatically.
It must have been dreadful for his family and his friends and his fans, but if you're a comedian, the most glorious sound to you is the laugh of an audience, and those will have been the last sounds he heard. That seems to me a wonderful, fitting tribute to him.
Incredible piece of television. I'm getting choked up now just thinking about it. I've not seen it for 40 years.
Somebody else, come on.
Most of us will never, fortunately, have to watch somebody die. But that night, millions of people did, right in front of them, right in their homes.
Soon we would all be swept up in a nationwide controversy.
It is an attempt by force to prevent others from doing what they have a right to do.
On one side, politics, the other, protests.
It's almost impossible to imagine that could happen in what was supposedly a civilized nation.
Which all became a matter of life and death.
Margaret Thatcher was saved by her workaholic nature.
We're stepping back to controversial 1984, when some barriers split communities.
No pit closures, no manpower reductions.
While another barrier built that year would save the Queen and the capital.
London has now been made free from the threat of flooding.
And a young prince arrived who would go on to provoke no controversy whatsoever. No, none.
The royal baby arrives. The princess has a second son. And they've already announced his names. He'll be christened Henry, Charles, Albert, David. But the royal couple say the family will call him Harry.
I think his name should be longer. Henry Charles, Albert, David, Wolfgang, Karen, Susan, Neve. You know, just make it longer and longer and longer. The most ridiculously long name in history. Because he's a royal, he can have any name he likes. He should be called Hepzibah or sort of Lightning, or maybe a bit like, you know, like a wrestler or something like that.
His less formal name was immortalised in Shakespeare's Agincourt battle cry. God for Harry, England and St. George.
That is very privileged rich people. They give them all these names and then give them a nickname. I think that's wonderful. Look at me. I'm Biggins.
So, Prince Harry, Henry, Charles, Albert, David, it is. OK, Britain, thoughts?
Harry, God, terrible, isn't it? You know, get that in the pub or something.
But I'm sure it'll be your popular name from now on.
Why? When I first heard the name, I didn't like it at all, but I've said it about 20 times now, and I'm quite getting used to it.
Having managed to tie the nation's tongues in knots, Prince Charles then unleashed another controversial nickname for an iconic London landmark.
But what is proposed seems to me like a monstrous carbuncle on the face of a much-loved, elegant friend.
Absolute, I mean, scenes, as they would say, when Prince Charles, as was, talks about an extension to the National Gallery being a carbuncle. I remember this was everywhere. He really wasn't allowed to say that.
King Charles, as he is now, he's a caring, thoughtful man. I don't think it was said in any way as a clever remark. I think he really meant it.
The argument was over this, the proposed extension to the National Gallery.
To be honest, though, I agree with Charles about the carbuncle comment because it wasn't in keeping with the original architecture. And for something not to kind of like, you know, match, and him saying to the carbuncle, I think he's within his rights.
You've only got to look at the places he lives in, and also the fact that he won't live in Buckingham Palace. He loves Clarence House as a Londoner, and the Clarence House is beautiful. It's a home. And Buckingham Palace is not a home. I mean, they should turn it into a hotel or, you know, be much better use.
He wasn't just saying, well, I don't like this newfangled stuff. He was saying, let's think a little bit about the visual language of central London, but it gave him a bad reputation.
It's interesting that people will criticise the royal family for being apolitical, which they're supposed to be, but then they'll criticise the royal family for ever saying anything. So you can't win. And yet, he managed to get it stopped, and a different one then built. And apparently the different one was better than the one they had proposed.
4 years later, a more sympathetic gallery extension was finally underway, unveiling the foundation stone, you guessed it, Carbuncle Charlie himself.
When the Prince and Princess of Wales arrived at the National Gallery in Trafalgar Square today, they were on something of a peace mission. They were bringing to an end one of the longest-running and heated arguments British architecture has seen.
We shall now have a purpose-built gallery extension rather than the unsatisfactory arrangement of a commercial office building with only a few galleries perched on top.
It was architects, not known for their violent protests, upset by Charles. But Margaret Thatcher was about to clash head-on with entire angry communities.
She admitted that 1984 has been the type of year she doesn't want to see again.
What we have seen in the past few weeks is not picketing at all.
The UK was on a knife edge as a miners versus government dispute was tearing the country apart.
It is an attempt by force to prevent others from doing what they have a right to do.
For me, as a kind of centre-left Conservative MP, the miners' strike was a sad and difficult period because it seemed to turn people against each other.
There were violent clashes at collieries as pickets fought both police and so-called scabs who refused to strike.
Everybody pretty much picked a side and battled it out. It was that divisive, it was that brutal, almost impossible to imagine that could happen in what was supposedly a civilised nation.
It's the nearest we got to civil war, I suppose. It wasn't about coal, it was about wanting to destroy the strongest bit of the working class and the trade unions.
It still seems unbelievable that people could revolt that strongly, that forcefully and that vocally for so long.
The miners' controversial leader was uber trade unionist Arthur Scargill, determined to stop the planned pit closures whatever the cost.
Our people are going without food. They are suffering severe hardship. They are having their electricity cut off as a result of this government's policy.
The one thing you don't lead your members into is a battle they can't possibly win. And there was no way, if you decided to have a strike to bring down the government, that you were going to win that one.
Violence in the coalfields has reached a new pitch because the miners' leaders will resort to anything.
I thought Mrs. Thatcher was right to hold out against the miners. The mining industry was headed for extinction anyway. It was being extinguished all over Europe. But the tone was sometimes a bit hateful.
This is a British Prime Minister who described the working class as the enemy within, as if they were somehow traitors to the nation.
Miners were just ordinary men and women like ourselves with children, and I should have preferred a Conservative government that had adopted at least a more conciliatory tone.
There was no conciliation, though, as alleged scabs' homes were burned. And as Thatcher pursued an us and them stance, she received a very British protest straight out of the larder.
Mrs. Thatcher was left in no doubt about her unpopularity when one of a barrage of eggs, tomatoes and ice creams found its mark squarely in the chest.
It's the slapstick hand grenade, the egg, isn't it, really? It's not ever going to cause anybody a great deal of harm, but it does cause a lot of mess and loss of face.
After a year of violence and protest, Thatcher emerged victorious, but another group were planning direct action against her. On the eve of her speech at the Tory conference in Brighton, there was a devastating attack.
The explosion came just before 3 o'clock. Most of the residents were asleep. Some were still socialising in the bars as the hotel was ripped apart.
It still is one of those news stories where, even as you were saying it out loud, it still sounded wrong. Those pictures of the front of the Grand Hotel in Brighton were remarkable.
After the initial and inevitable confusion, the rescue operation was soon underway.
You didn't need to be political to know this was a terrible thing to do. Everybody was shocked. How could this happen? The gunpowder plot was years ago.
Some of the casualties helped out at ground level were able to walk, but only just. Others, more seriously hurt, were stretchered to ambulances.
I was staying in the Ship Hotel, which was a little bit further down, because I was brand new MP, and first thing in the morning, I went for a run along the prom, only to find that the hotel had disappeared in a pile of rubble. I said, God, you know, what's happened, and I was immediately reassured the Prime Minister's OK.
Margaret Thatcher was saved by her workaholic nature, that she was actually working on her conference speech when the bomb went off sometime between 2 and 3 in the morning.
I just turned to do one final paper, and then it went off. My husband was in bed, and all the windows went, and the bathroom was extremely badly
In your own room?
Yes,
In your room?
yes.
They were trying to kill her, and it was sheer luck. That didn't happen.
Firemen were forced to axe their way through locked doors. But the biggest problem was how to free victims trapped in the remains of the upper floors.
Controversially, news broadcasters aired the rescue of Trade and Industry Secretary Norman Tebbit live on TV.
The firemen are now getting close to Mr. Tebbit. He's in a crouching position with the rubble of his room more or less on his back.
As clear as day, I remember seeing Norman Tebbit being stretchered out. To see him in his pyjamas, dust around his face, a bit bloodied and a bit battered, was really rather shocking at the time.
This is live news, 1984 style. And it still has the power to shock today.
It was 10 minutes to 7. The rescue had taken nearly 4 hours.
5 people died in the attack, with many more seriously injured.
It was absolutely tragic for those who lost their lives, for Norman Tebbit's wife, who was maimed for life.
Makes you very frightened and very determined that they're not going to win.
Margaret Thatcher sent a clear message back to the IRA when she refused to cancel the conference.
Mrs. Thatcher walked along the front to start her conference on the dot of 9:30.
I knew immediately what the response would be. It would be take no notice and carry on.
They began with prayer and 2 minutes silence.
There was an element of understanding what it was like during the Blitz for our parents and knowing that they didn't give in and eventually they defeated Hitler. And if we showed the same kind of spirit, however scared we were, we would eventually defeat the IRA.
Thatcher's Churchillian resolve even drew respect from her detractors.
I spent a lot of my life making fun of her. And yet, when I saw her speech, you just saw the Iron Lady. You couldn't help it.
And the fact that we are gathered here now, shocked, but composed and determined, is a sign not only that this attack has failed, but that all attempts to destroy democracy by terrorism will fail.
The week after, she was in church, she said, and she looked through the stained glass window and the light was coming in. And she said, I realized this was the day I was not meant to see. And I don't think you can be a human being if you don't have some understanding of that thought.
Coming up, more of 84's controversial women with the live MTV debut of this Material Girl.
Blasphemy, darling. What was she doing?
There's a furore over fur.
Wow. That's graphic.
And a music legend is under fire.
It was really, really shocking that something like that could happen to one of our pop stars.
Do not adjust your set. This was what passed as high fashion in 1984, as clothes for the 80s generation screamed, "Look at me now!"
People felt more free to express themselves. Not caring what people think was just really fun, and we didn't take ourselves too seriously.
And while the rest of the UK were dressing like this, across the pond, a controversial 26-year-old stylistic pioneer was out to dominate the planet.
One of pop music's most flamboyant characters. A girl has been tipped as the white female answer to Michael Jackson.
The hottest property on the music scene at the moment, Madonna.
I like the way she acts. She's got everything. She's worked her way up. She's like Marilyn Monroe again, except a much harder Marilyn Monroe.
It's Virgin on the Ridiculous.
Madonna was one of those artists, well, she still is, where she makes headlines.
She knows exactly what buttons to press.
Madonna is the girl that every boy wants to go to bed with and every girl wants to be. And every parent loathes and despises.
She's always been opinionated. She's always been outspoken. She doesn't care about her critics. If she's got a message that she wants to get across, she'll get it.
If you're going to call your track Like a Virgin, then you know people's backs will be up. Madonna revelled in conservative criticism that she was undermining family values. Next, MTV invited her to perform the song live at their inaugural Video Awards. Oh, the possibilities.
Anything could happen. I think she may well surprise everybody.
You don't say. Madonna was a controversy-seeking missile, determined to score a direct hit.
First of all, she said she would do it if they provided a live Bengal tiger. But they didn't want to do that. So she decided she would do it dressed in a wedding dress.
Madonna, MTV, Like a Virgin. Blasphemy, darling. What was she doing?
So far, so harmless. But soon the bride had everyone blushing.
I was like, okay, like a virgin, but you're not being a virgin. It was very, very controversial.
Then she rolls around on the floor, and it shows the top of her thigh and her backside. It all seems quite pleasant to me.
That's not how a virgin behaves. Was she drinking? No, I mean, look. She's obviously in the moment. She's enjoying her performance.
Madonna may not have been the headline artist, but her risque routine stole the show.
MTV, I don't know how many millions and millions of viewers over the world. So she thought, let me just push it over the edge. So she pushed it.
Cue predictable outrage from the world's media.
They got very bent out of shape about this indeed. And then she has to make an excuse. Oh, well, her shoe had come off. But obviously Madonna's going to do this. It's quite obvious. I don't understand why everyone got so distressed about it.
As a businesswoman, Madonna was very clever. She knew which buttons to push. She knew what would get pressed. She knew what would get things talked about. She knew what would get records sold.
She knew that she was going to be very successful, and she knew she was going to have a career in film as well. She told me.
It's the sort of ecstatic welcome that hasn't been seen since the Beatles.
40 years on, even Madonna's face is controversial. She's still the most successful female artist of all time, though. So what's the legacy of those raunchy 3 minutes way back in '84?
Upon reflection, I'm sure it was very controversial for the time. At this moment in time, we've all done much worse. We've all seen a lot worse. I probably got a lot worse in the gallery on my phone right now.
If you consider today's artists like Beyoncé or rap artists, you know, in their videos, you know, how raunchy they get. What Madonna is doing is kindergarten stuff.
I think present day has really gone a bit too far. You've got Cardi B, who just plain old gyrates and wears a G-string all the time. But Madonna might have started it. She may have started it that you have to push it a bit further and a bit further.
Madonna's racy style influenced a whole new generation. But high fashion came at a price. In an era when wearing fur was still considered chic and live animals were controversially used as test subjects for new makeup products, 1984 saw outraged animal lovers pulling ever more public stunts.
Nearly 1,500 animal rights protesters from a wide area converged on the farm, and foxes have been released from their pen.
It certainly seemed around this time, the early 80s, the mid-80s, that the animal rights protesters were becoming much more visible.
It was important, and it was a febrile time for animal rights campaigners.
There were quite shocking protests, really, like injecting Mars bars with poison, and to really raise awareness, to really hit the headlines.
So far, there's no firm evidence that any of the 10 bars discovered have actually been injected with poison.
A controversial confectionery campaign would gain nationwide exposure.
Which is the more important to you, children or animals?
I think the greater suffering is the most important. The fact that millions of animals are tortured every year in the laboratories in this country.
What about poisoned children? Are they not more important?
There are no poisoned children.
You're saying there's no poison in these Mars bars whatsoever?
Well, there's been no evidence of it so far,
But you can't give us any guarantees about that whatsoever.
There's plenty of evidence of cruelty to animals.
Extreme protests polarise opinions, and in 1984, this shocking Lynx anti-fur campaign, followed by an even more controversial Greenpeace TV advert, split opinions. It looks like a catwalk show, largely because legendary style snapper David Bailey was directing. Known as the Dumb Animals campaign, it's too disturbing for TV today, as the fashionistas are splattered with blood.
Ooh. Wow, that's graphic.
Even now, as an adult, you watch that and you think, wow.
For a large part of it, it feels like a very 80s glamorous yuppie era fashion show. Then you start to see the blood, and then it kind of throws it back at you. If you buy a coat like this, you're a dumb animal.
After this moment, it becomes like socially unacceptable to wear fur.
Who wants to wear a fox around their neck anyway? Who wants to wear a jacket that's made out of, 17 dead animals?
Pressure worked as major designers went fur-free, or in some cases fur partly free.
People used to go, yeah, but it's not 100% fur, it's only 50%. And you go, what, do you think there's a fox that's just lost its back legs and it's still running around with just 2 legs like that? And I think that really hit home, where it shows actually the death and the cruelty of it.
Today, 19 European countries have banned fur farming, but over 90 million animals are still killed annually to put their fur on humans' backs. 1984's clothing was clearly as contentious as it was colourful. And without a hair-raising outlandish mop to top it off, you'd never stand out from the crowd. But with rivers of gel, mountains of mousse, and gales of hairspray, most of which contained napalm apparently, you risked more than a bad hair day.
I did a pantomime with Tessa Sanderson. She was an Olympic javelin thrower, gold medalist actually. And she'd come on and a pyrotechnic had gone off. It caught her hair, backcombed full of hairspray, and it set fire to her hair. So I was going on stage, bashing her head, trying to put the fire out. It was dangerous. It was exactly the same as what happened to Michael Jackson in the Pepsi advert.
1984 was arguably Michael Jackson's biggest year. Thriller was breaking global sales records and nothing seemingly could go wrong.
Oh my gosh, Michael Jackson was the king of pop. He was #1. He sold out stadiums worldwide. He was the top banana.
Michael Jackson's Thriller is now the highest-selling solo album in the history of recorded music.
Jackson's life was about to take a terrifying twist. A starring role in a Pepsi commercial went devastatingly wrong, as seen in this horrifying behind-the-scenes footage.
Of course, you've got hair, makeup, you've got Jerry curl juice and spray and all of this everywhere. One of the sparks just went too close to Michael. His hair was set on fire.
Oh, no. That's really bad what happened there. That's the worst place to get burnt.
Then all of a sudden, the crew's running over there, patting his head down.
The footage. He got dragged off in flames on his head and been putting towels on him. And it was really, really shocking.
He ended up with second-degree burns, problems with hair growing back. It was a mess.
While Jackson's chart success continued, some believe those few shocking seconds may mark the turning point between Jackson's old life and the deteriorating health that would follow.
I want you to know. We didn't see the trauma of it. We saw the drama of it. It's like, oh my God, Michael Jackson's head's on fire, but it must have been awful for him.
In a way, it was an even darker tragedy because they then say that the reason that he got so far into prescription drugs was because of the drugs he'd had to take as painkillers, and that he was never the same again.
But as we should know by now, big corporations tend to get their way, and amazingly, the Pepsi advert still got shown.
The Pepsi ad, actually, it went on to go out, but a lot later. And you know those clever clogs, they did use some of that to push the advertisement. But at first, nobody wanted to touch a Pepsi. They thought that Pepsi set your hair on fire.
In 1984, the final controversial straw
You need to be tortured like I was. I made it, you can make it.
would mean the end of time-honoured traditions
You got Mickey Mouse qualifications. I think they were just jealous.
and a frightening fear of the future.
I was more or less convinced I would end up kind of bartering rat meat in the ruins of Cheadle.
Oh, 1984, so much to answer for.
The fire at York Minster is still a mystery tonight.
Landmarks burned as iconic British institutions disappeared.
It was awful. I lived in fear.
We all know us Brits hate change, even small change. In 84, it arrived with a vengeance.
The campaign to save the English pound note is gathering pace. After yesterday's announcement that it's to be replaced by the pound coin, MPs, Labour and Tory, are demanding a rethink. Conservative Norman St John Stevens called it the most unpopular coin in our history.
I remember when the pound note was phased out, feeling a little bit nostalgic for that little bit of paper that's scrunched in my jeans pocket.
I remember the pound notes, they were lovely. You felt rich when you had a few quid, didn't you? Like a wad.
I remember the end very clearly. I remember lots of old people getting really irate about it. My dad talking about how we were going to have to get used to this newfangled situation.
The campaign to stamp out the coin isn't confined to Westminster.
Well, Ada, we've had about 3,000 letters in all, and many of them contain petitions.
But it's old people in particular who are most likely to be upset by the metal pound.
The old people, some of them don't realise the difference between them, say, and a 5 or a 20 pence piece.
Do you yourself find it confusing?
Yes, I do sometimes.
The change in that was almost like you had killed society for that generation. I remember people going, oh, you can't get rid of that. The £1 coin was tiny. It was actually more practical.
Any introduction of any kind of new monetary, anything tangible, is going to upset them. Of course, in 1971, they had to deal with decimalisation. So you've gone pound note to pound coin, then you went big 10p, smaller 10p, 5p, smaller 5p. Any change of size of coin of thing, oh, too fiddly. Get it on the bus.
For some, they were a blessing.
The blind say they can recognise the coin by touch. People who make slot machines reckon it'll make our lives easier.
As a kid, I was just like, I want a pound coin. And I remember holding that pound coin in my hand and just marvelling at it, because it was really heavy. You know, as a kid, it was like, oh, my God, how heavy is this?
Most did what we do best, complain.
Most of the people I've spoken to have assumed that if anything was going to be scrapped, it would be the coin and not the note.
Because no one wants the coins at all. Everybody wants pound notes.
Well, I think it's a shame in a way, because I think a pound note has got more value than a pound coin.
Maybe never apply to be Chancellor. But if maths O-level was going to be a stretch, there was maybe good news on the way. In 1984, exams were getting a controversial overhaul.
O-level GCE exams and the CSE are to go. The GCSE will replace the present O-levels and CSEs.
Got that? Good. The era of everything resting on a single end-of-year exam was gone.
I lived in fear of O-levels, and it was a memory test, which is ironic now, as kind of my job's a memory test all the time, really learning lines and learning script.
So you did well then?
I got 2.
I left school at 16 and I worked really hard for my exams. I came out with 3.
More than 2. Well done.
The new scheme will put all children on the same scale. There'll be harder papers with higher marks for the brighter and more ambitious. Simpler questions for those who choose them.
No, you've lost me. Someone explain, are GCSEs easier?
I did O-levels, obviously, and did rather well in them, thank you very much. And when they became GCSEs, I think everybody knew that they were completely diminished. No one since has done a serious exam. No young English person who hasn't done a proper I'm only kidding.
People who did O-levels said, yeah, it's a Mickey Mouse exam. You got Mickey Mouse qualifications. I think they were just jealous.
All I'm going to say is, I got a couple of O-levels, yeah, And my friends, I'm not saying some of them were stupider than me, but they all got like 10 GCSEs or 12 GCSEs.
In some subjects, the children will set their own standards, choose how deeply and how precisely they answer the questions, or choose what questions to attempt.
I remember thinking, I wish I was doing GCSEs. A lot of it was prep work and project work, and you were judged on that as equally as the test at the end.
GCSEs come in, and all of a sudden, I can pass my English literature with no exam. I can pass my English language with no exam. And that, to me, seemed, A, not only much more beneficial for my own skill set, but B, a much fairer way of testing your rounded knowledge.
Thanks to the introduction of GCSEs, we now have generations of bitter O-level parents convinced their kids are educational chances.
People always want their children to struggle how they did. When I speak to my mother, she said, oh, I did O-levels and then I did this and it was like torture. Which is why you should do the same thing too. You shouldn't have it easier. You need to be tortured like I was. I made it, you can make it.
Poor young things. All we did was change the name.
All right, so in 1984, we lost our pound notes and O-levels were being phased out. We lived, we moved on. But waiting in the wings was a far more apocalyptic event, the apocalypse.
In 1984, I think I probably thought about the end of the world more than I thought about anything else.
I was obsessed with nuclear war and massively afraid as well.
It structured our lives. The thought of looking up into the sky and seeing something that would vaporize your eyeballs.
The whole thing to me is terrifying. You know, it is mutually assured destruction.
In 1984, there were nuclear weapons everywhere. Russia had them, America had them, your granddad probably had them. But he wasn't running the free world, unlike retired cowboy actor President Reagan, with his finger on the nuclear trigger.
The fact you had an old Hollywood movie star actually as President of the United States of America was almost like we'd entered this sort of blockbuster apocalyptic film, and it all felt very, very real.
So not a time to do anything stupid. Russia were on a third leader in 3 years, Chernenko, and feeling twitchy. Enter President Reagan with some Armageddon-inviting ad-lib. Hilarious? Well, no.
Every Saturday morning, Reagan gave a radio address from the White House. And of course, before any broadcast, you check the mic for sound, and normally you say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But he came on with this daffy line about starting to bomb the Russians.
All right, my fellow Americans, I'm pleased to tell you today that I've signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes.
We all saw that if this was some kind of a joke, it was particularly scary because some truth might lie behind it.
This is an off-the-cuff remark. It's a joke, really, but I suppose it's the joke that could have ended everything.
It wasn't a storm in a teacup. It was more than that. It's a joke of the most alarming proportions if you considered he was the man with his finger on the nuclear button. It took a lot of explaining away afterwards, especially, of course, to the Soviet Union.
3, 2, 1, mark.
With Reagan's stand-up career on hold, the nuclear controversy would next explode in the UK when US cruise missiles targeting Russia arrived on our shores.
There's a time of the deployment of medium-range missiles in Europe, and he was thought to be trigger-happy, and there were huge protests at Greenham Common and elsewhere.
Understandably, we didn't want to be in Britain an airstrip for nuclear war. And as so often in history, it's women who take the lead, and they created this fabulous peace camp.
The Tory government was not in the mood for protests.
In 1984, we know which side we're on. We're with the Americans, and if they want to base cruise weapons in Britain, then so be it. You do whatever you can to avoid war, and sometimes that includes being very well armed.
With the Cold War heating up, public preparation for the horrors of nuclear war intensified.
It was a time for nuclear scares.
Take cover at once when you hear the attack sound.
You had public information films of what would happen in the event of hearing the air attack warning. You had 4 minutes, and it became a standard sort of school playground thing. Oh, what would you do in your last 4 minutes?
If you weren't already petrified, you soon would be.
Jesus Christ, they've done it.
The brutal and controversial drama Threads told you everything you really didn't want to know about nuclear destruction.
Threads is completely and utterly nightmarishly terrifying and haunting.
To actually see the grim reality, was exceptionally powerful.
We all watched it kind of pale-faced, I think, the blood drained from us.
It was everything I'd read about, but then made into an even more howling nightmare.
It was controversial in the sense that put a great deal of fear out there.
Threads isn't reality, it's only a television programme, and one based upon the sometimes controversial techniques of a drama documentary.
What we were trying to do in Threads was to give a realistic picture to people who perhaps haven't thought about it at all in their lives.
It certainly did the trick. Thanks for that.
I didn't think I would have reacted like this, but I just couldn't help it. There's going to be nothing after, is there? Nothing.
I want to die when it hits me because I don't want to live through anything they live through, not at all.
Watching Threads, I was more or less convinced I would end up kind of bartering rat meat in the ruins of Cheadle. That's what the future seemed to present to me.
Listen, I might seem like a traitor, but guess what? I'd rather be taken over by the Russians, the Chinese, or the North Koreans than be vaporised.
Now that's what I call controversially 1984.
It was the year Bobby Ewing took a shower and left us gobsmacked. 1986 Most Shocking Moments is brand new next Saturday at 5 to 11, and you can listen to the soundtrack of the era in Britain's favourite 80s hits, available now on My5. Next tonight, Playboy, the centrefolds that changed the world.